H.G. Herbert's 100 Harem. Things had gotten moving rather quickly after that, and to make sure there was no misunderstanding about anything, Jalassi had ensured that everyone was followed by a high-end stealth drone to record everything into a black box for Lady Basilash to observe later. Herbert was more or less relegated to tour guide on the Dauntless, as he showed the team the way down to the labs. The whole time Jalassi was giving him a furious look when she thought he wasn't watching, and it was spreading to the rest of the group. This is something he'll need to confront sooner rather than later. "All right, doctors, you're able to chemically analyze this substance, but can you date it?" Herbert asks after the basic rundown of the physical components of the metal are gone over again. Date it? Well, do remember the galactic timescales we're operating on. For all we know, this is some cultish funeral service spread across all of prosperous space. In that light, the amount of blood metal becomes less of a concern, and it's more why it's being used in such a way, and why is it all in one place. If it is a more friendly, or more likely just a less horrible reason it's all together, then it will be over a long period of time. If it was all made at once, then the galaxy somehow missed at least one genocide, or something was found to make a very dangerous substance much, much easier to produce. "All right, that is quite enough of those questions, Agent," Jalassi says sternly. "The process of refining proper blood metal requires the murder of its source, twisting the axiom in a person's body until it is utterly hostile to the person, rendering them down to chemically inert scraps and a single tiny piece of metal. It is a nightmarish way to die that is not swift, not efficient, and not pleasant. Using a clone creates a much less potent variant, and trying to replicate the pattern of axiom destruction with donated blood alone also creates the less potent variant. We're dealing with pure blood metal, which means that every 5 milligrams is another murder. Another torturous murder. Thank you for informing me of this, ma'am. Doctors, I still want every sample we can get dated. We need a timeline that this madness was perpetuated in," Herbert says, taking control of things. "Dr. Polito, what amounts are we dealing with?" "The plating is a centimeter thick, weighing at 78.5 kilograms per meter squared. There is an even 100 meters squared of this stuff, so far." "Good God damn," Herbert mutters. "That's over 15 billion people." "Yes, sir," Dr. Polito agrees. 15,700,000,000 so far. That is an absurd number in Belly's belief in practicality. How the hell was something like that not noticed? Unless this nightmare took 1,000 years to build, then there's no way to cover it up. Not even on a planet like Centris. This would have been noticed before now. Not to mention you found this on Galvary plate. It's 400 years old. The very superstructure of the plate is too young to fit in a subtle time frame. Dr. Polito adds, "Be that as it may, gathered subtly over many thousands of years or taken all at once in a slaughter, this metal is a testament to suffering and agony, deliberately invoked for little gain and with horrible means. The only legal reason to have some is if you're lawfully investigating the source of one or attempting to turn it in to the relevant authorities," Jalassi states. "No mercy for those ignorant of what it is," Dr. Polito challenges. "Allowances can be made for ignorance, but knowingly possessing this is highly illegal," Jalassi says before she slithers past Dr. Polito and examines the small sample of blood metal floating in a zero-atmosphere, anti-gravity container. A cross-section of the plating, no doubt. Dozens, if not hundreds of deaths for this sliver of metal. One of the other investigators, an albino Lopen woman, kneels down until she merely looms over Herbert and doesn't tower. "Young one," she begins, "I'm 30. He notes. It's petty, yes, but she's clearly not taking him seriously, despite the seriousness of the investigation. "Agent Jameson, the chambers in Galvary Spire where this happened have an access point in Spire and Maru, correct?" "Yes." "Is it being watched?" "Of course. The fact that it is was in the report I gave you." Herbert says, "Very good. I think our introductions went a little quickly. I am Investigator Elaine Snow, council representative in this endeavor, and considered one of several trusted neutral parties for council affairs. Your reputation as gleaming white as your coat, barring the small birthmark in your upper left back," Herbert says, and she blinks as he leans back a little to fully lock eyes with her. "I'm fully aware of who you are and what you're capable of, ma'am." "I see. Very well researched, young agent," she says, and he raises an eyebrow. "Now, as to my request. I'll show you the chambers personally when we've finished here to everyone's satisfaction. I want there to be no debates or questions remaining. Yes, these laboratories and its scientists. Is there a problem, ma'am? No, this is all up to standards in safety, professionalism, and everyone here is... She hesitates. Everyone here is, Herbert prompts her. Nothing to be concerned about. However, having our own tools and scientists examine things might be for the better. Ma'am, we have offered as such, and you all insisted on seeing our results and the sources of our information as soon as possible. Your own examiners and equipment are still being prepared, he reminds her. I know Ma'am, if you're unable to work with men, perhaps you should inform the council that another investigator should be sent. This is quite serious. I have no issue working with men. My own son's advancement to CEO has more than shown me how capable they can be. The issue is, however, that despite your rapid advancement, this organization is still rather primitive. Compared to even a modest laboratory, this place is underfunded, with a severe lack of fully trained individuals. Your educational standards are equal to any other centrist laboratory. We have rapidly advanced our doctors and researchers to the appropriate level. They have undergone the appropriate tests and... Herbert begins to counter before a gentle claw is placed on his opposite shoulder. The representative of the Centrist Defense and Investigation Department is a cybernetic Wimparus named Mia Umberclaw. Her augmented claws have numerous powerful tools implanted into them, and at the moment, several are active, outright scanning Herbert even as she tries to offer hypocritical comfort. Look, young one, we're not dismissing all you've accomplished here. You've moved like lightning and accomplished an incredible number of things. You've moved like lightning and need to understand that we're here now. We can take care of this. I believe the appropriate term is matronizing, Herbert asks as he brushes both Umberclaw and Snow off his shoulders. Actually, it's still patronizing, with the root word being patron as in a business contract. Dr. Ivan Grace says as he simply appears in their presence. I received your orders for the testing of the blood metal. It crosses over closely into my own specializing as a cloner. I found some very confusing data, sir, and you need to be aware of it. And why is your Axiom presence in such a... Why are you... Jalassi asks in confusion at the unusually tall Cobe man. For a quick summation, a particularly clone of myself, I decided to attempt to create a primal Cobe and use me as the main ingredient. While I have been rescued and restored, I am still changed by the events in question. But that is not important for this mess. I've dated the blood metal, and when I got confusing results, I expanded my search. What I've found is raising further questions. I commend your skill on capturing an audience, Dr. Grace. Please share your findings. Of course, first off, the age of the metal. I've taken samples from each section of the blood metal sheeting, no more than 1 per meter square. Between the 100 samples, only 3 of them are over a century in age, and only in part. The vast majority of the metal is less than 50 years in age, averaging between 25 and 40 years old. Excuse me, that can't be right. Umberclaw protests and Dr. Grace nods. It struck me as odd as well, which led me to test the samples that were incorporated into the unusual patterns. That's where things got odder. Odd how? The area is directly marked by the pattern register as being freshly made, as in within the last 72 hours fresh. Dr. Grace says before he holds out his left hand, and suddenly a small sealed vial with a transparent yellow fluid is suddenly in his hand and an entirely red sliver of metal is on the bottom. Ivan gives it a shake and then holds it up. The blood metal has doubled in size since I inserted it. I haven't had a chance to test it yet, not to mention the strange fluid is still confusing us. But we have evidence that whoever made all this has found a mass production method of blood metal, or at least a more subtle way to get more of it when you already have some. Mia gently takes the vial and her eyes widen as she reads the information pouring in from her integrated scanners. The fluid is being classified as amniotic with 85% certainty. Yes, it's similar, but still quite different to many formulae used in cloning to support and sustain the end product while it's being grown. If I used this substance in a cloning tank, it would work, but it wouldn't be as clean or efficient as I would like, or really any professional cloner would care for. There's an enormous amount of biological contamination, and we can't fully pin down the source. In what way can it not be narrowed down? Mia asks. Genetic group to start with, the source is biological is the only sure thing about it. It contains traces of all types of flora and fauna and seems to be less a proper amniotic substitute and more a good enough substitute. Good enough? In that it wouldn't cause immediate irreparable damage, and if used sparingly and for short periods will suffice for just about anything you want to clone. But it will also be extremely dirty compared to normal universal amniotic substitutes, even the most mass-produced and low-quality varieties. Okay, can you please skip to the part that has you concerned? Herbert asks, and Dr. Grace nods. May I have the sample back, please? He asks, holding out his hand, and Mia passes it to him without a fuss. Observe. He then gently guides Axiom into the fluid with blood metal, and the whole laboratory moves. He stops and everyone takes stock of things. Weapons are out, pulses are up, and no one is comfortable or at ease. No one but Dr. Grace. Cognito hazard, Herbert growls as he deactivates his grenade and holsters his shotgun. Not quite. A side effect. Observe the sample of blood metal has grown, and there is substantially less fluid. Yvonne explains as people store their pistols, knives, and in the case of more enthusiastic individuals, cannons. He allows Mia to take it again, and she's very, very pale. It's at 168% its previous size. We're down to 73% of the fluid in question. The fluid works with the metal, creating something that induces a flight or fight response in everyone nearby, but only so long as the fluid is charged with axiom. The more people nearby, the more the metal grows. But the amount of fluid lost is consistent regardless of the growth of the metal, Ivan explains. Without my more unusual axiom sensitivities, I wouldn't have noticed, but the blood metal is literally being fed off of fear. Or perhaps the axiom pattern created by fear, Jalassi says. More torture, pointless fear, and possibly pain to make more of it, but non-lethal amounts. She takes the vial from Mia and stares into it. This is a very real problem. If they can set off a big enough effect with the fluid and the metal working in tandem, they can hit entire plates or spires with it. Then how much of the metal will they have? Elaine asks. And what will they do with it? Mia continues the questions. And who have they been torturing to make more? The number of dead people in this madness just dropped through the floor. But the number of torture victims, or repeat torture victims, Jalassi focuses on what matters to her the most. To say nothing of what it can be used for, blood metal has not been extensively studied, but the very few weapons that incorporated it into the past had it act like a strange combination of Kutha and Tritite, destroying or ignoring axiom defenses while simultaneously holding powerful axiom effects. Ivan adds his own concerns in. And they have so much that just shy of 8,000 kilos of the stuff can be used for flooring of all things. Herbert's observation sends a chill down their spines.